Greetings, one and all. Now, as most of you will know, the NHL 18 closed beta has been released and runs until the 1st of August. The beta gives fans the chance to get to play the latest addition to the franchise before the full game hits shelves in September. I have played a fair amount of this beta, as seen by my several live streams over the last week, and I have decided to do a review on everything I have seen. So here is my NHL 18 closed beta review. I think we should start on a positive with NHL 3s. Now this is the biggest surprise for me and the most promising feature that was shown in the beta. NHL 3s turns the hyper-accurate NHL series into more of an arcade game, where teams consisting of a centre, a winger, a defenseman and a goalie aim to gain a certain amount of goals or points to win the game. There is no time limit, only the score limit. Usually 1 goal equals 1 point, but every few goals you are treated to a money puck, that when glowing orange means a goal can be worth 2 or 3 points, or when glowing blue means the scorer gets 1 point but also makes their opponent lose 1, 2 or even 3 points. Now that may sound similar to the highly unplaced anniversary mode that was in the game a few years ago. I think it was NHL 14. It was highly unplayed, let's be honest, the anniversary mode. But believe me when I say 3s is a hell of a lot of fun. I too expected it to be something that I played once or twice and then put down. But it's a quick and fun alternative to playing a standard NHL game in NHL 18. And it is so much fun. There's always something happening. The thing is with hockey, there's always something happening. But with 3s, that is true. The rink is much smaller. There's less players. There's more scoring. It's brilliant. However, the only criticism I have of 3s is the triple money puck being, in my opinion, a little too unbalanced. You can be up by several points dominating somebody in a game of 3s, but if they get a lucky shot and they get the triple and win the game, say if you're winning 4 points to 2 and the score limit's 5, which it was for the online version of 3s in the beta, and if they score that, they win the game. That kind of seems a little bit unfair to me. However, it may just be more of a case of I need to get good. But one thing's for certain, the triple money puck does change the momentum of the game drastically. I think having a double money puck is fine. I think the triple might be a little bit too much, especially if the score is only 5 points. So to conclude on 3s, NHL 3s is definitely the best part about the beta, hands down, and is well worth a try once the game hits shelves. It may not be for everyone, but it isn't just a gimmick, it's a great experience, and most of all it's fun, so I'd recommend that everybody gives it at least one go when the game comes out. Next up we have EASHL, which I must admit I didn't really play any EASHL. I've never really been a huge EASHL player, mainly because I don't have any friends. But from what I've heard, that was also 3-on-3 was EASHL, and it felt very similar to NHL 17 EASHL, but with only 3 players and the added gameplay features, which we shall discuss later. So EASHL apparently is good. 3-on-3 works for some, but not for others. For people especially not in a club, it works much better for drop-in games, less players you have to worry about. But, I mean, I might give it a try when the game comes out, and you guys can let me know if it's worth playing. You guys let me know in the comments below if EASHL was any good. We then move on to the last game mode available in the beta, Online Versus. This is, of course, the mode that pits you against another player online, and you each play as one of the NHL teams to see who can win. Now, I carried an almost unbeaten record and played roughly 12 games in Online Versus, so you can guess that I quite enjoyed this mode. But that's not the point right now. Online Versus, to be honest, isn't any different to the previous Online Versus in NHL 17, besides the new Deeks and defensive skill stick, which we'll get into later. They keep the mode different enough to pique curiosity with these new additions, but it is still the same old game mode. Not that that's a bad thing. It does what it says on the tin, so there's not really much else to say on it. It kind of does exactly what it says. It's Online Versus. It's added the new features with the new Deeks and the defensive skill stick, but other than that, it's the same old Online Versus, which I think works, because, I mean, there are only a certain amount of people that like to play Online Versus once the game comes out, and I think this caters to them quite nicely. So good job, EA. Now from game modes to gameplay features now, as we look at the new bits that EA Sports has put into the new game. Starting with the defensive skill stick. the defensive skill stick for me is definitely the best new feature, as it is really useful for breaking up plays, and it allows players to take more control on running a defense, which was somewhat lacking from NHL 17. Instead of your poke checks missing the player you want to target due to the game, now if you miss a poke check, it's your fault for not putting it in the right place. It introduces a lot more accountability to the player and will help to separate the noobs from the pros as to who uses it properly, especially in online games. So the defensive skill stick is a great addition. It takes a little while to get used to, but good job EA Sports on that one. I'm very pleased that that's now in the game, especially on penalty kills. Then we move on to the quote-unquote new deeks, or the creative attack deeks as EA likes to call them. I mean, the new deeks are nice and all that, and they add more creativity to the game and are probably great for players who like to puck hog or show off all the time, but I've never really been one to try out all the fancy show off deeks, so I'll likely forget about these ones and how to do them once the game comes out properly. So the deeks, yeah, sure, they're cool, I guess. I mean, I tried the between the legs one, I didn't try the one-handed ones. I just find it's too much faff with all the different buttons that you've got to press. Let's just play a hockey game. Like, how often do you see people one-handing stuff in NHL games, in real NHL games? Not very often. How many times do you see between the leg shots? Not very often. Sure, I'm glad that they're in it, but I think there's going to be a lot of puck hogs, especially in EASHL, now that they've added all these extra deeks. More so than there was already. In terms of scoring goals in NHL 18, you can still score in very similar ways to NHL 17, such as one-timers, low-pad rebounds, short-side snipes, and top corner cheese shots. So most of the goals that I showed in my How to Score in NHL 17 video. For a game claiming to have improved AI, which we will talk about a little bit more later, it doesn't seem all that improved to stop one-timers or easily prevent breakaways by not going for the hit instead of trying to poke check. However, with the one-timers, the offhand one-timer slap shot that was the cause of many goals in NHL 17 seems to have had its effectiveness reduced. You know, the move where the player is on his off-wing, so he uses the slap shot off the one-timer to put it past the goalie. It seems now that the one-timer has been replaced by the forehand one-timer, when the player is on the side of the ice that favours his handedness, so he weakly flicks it over the goalie. From what I have played, this is the way to one-time next year, especially in online versus. The previous one-timer is still pretty effective in threes, but either works for threes. That said, there is one bone I want to pick with EA Sports in terms of gameplay and scoring. Why have you made the forehand-backhand move from the left, moving the right stick to the left and right and vice versa? Why have you made that so slow now, EA? I used to love scoring my forehand-backhand cheese goals, and now I can only pull it off like 5% of the time. Almost all of my Be A Pro goals came from that move, so don't take it away from me. Take the one-timer instead. I won't miss that as much as my forehand-backhand cheese. Please. Moving on now, and you seem to be able to push goalies around in their crease again, or a lot more than previous games, which might cause problems and a lot more controversial goals being allowed or disallowed, or penalties being called rightly or wrongly due to a goalie being a flimsy piece of flesh again. I'm glad that the goalie can be interacted with and there isn't an invisible wall in front of him like previous NHL games, but it seems he's a bit too interactive with other players in the beta. Add to that the fact that players seem to be falling over each other and the goalie more often than previous games. There seems to be some hypocrisy, as a player will get a goaltender interference penalty for just touching the goalie, but there will be no penalty when the goalie knocks over two of the opposing team's players and they stay wobbling around on the ice like a pair of worms and create an odd mad rush for the other team. It just seems a bit silly for me. You need to make that equal, EA Sports, in my opinion. Speaking of wobbliness, whilst the players seem much more wobbly, the puck also seems wobblier than ever. Like, it seems so much more difficult to control it as well as you used to, which makes the game feel a lot more frantic and more difficult to plan an attack. This works in some ways, as battling for the puck can provide many different outcomes now, but it can be tough to set up an attack or get out of the zone when it wobbles around so much. And lastly, with gameplay features, the creative AI. Yes, I did say we would get back to this. Now, I called this when it was announced, and I was right. The so-called creative AI is not really any different to last year. In fact, it may even be worse than last year, as players on the same team seem to run into each other a lot more often than they used to. Expect to have similar problems with AI teammates as last year, as EA clearly haven't fixed most of the problems. It's not that creative, they're just stupid AI. They shouldn't call it creative AI, just foolish AI. Now, from gameplay features to general unresolved notes that fans have either requested for a while, or I have noticed, or some minor good things as well. Speaking of graphics, there are only minor graphical changes, if any changes, which is evident by the gameplay shown in this video, I hope. The graphics are nothing to write home about compared to last year and emphasise how much NHL could benefit from the Frostbite engine like FIFA and Madden. Get on that, EA, for NHL 19, we need it. Also, there are still no 5-man celebrations after goals, which loses the authenticity to the real NHL, and considering they're a game that's trying to be as authentic to the real NHL as possible, that's kind of a big one. I mean, it's not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of, like, atmosphere and creating an actual NHL game, which is what they've been trying to do, they kind of need that, because you never see 2 players celebrate by themselves once a goal is scored. It just doesn't happen. And lastly, the soundtrack actually sounds pretty good, and the new songs make a welcome addition, in my opinion, to keep the sounds of the game as interesting and fun as possible. It's not the best sports game soundtrack out there, but it follows a similar genre of previous NHL games, which suits me very nicely with some hard rock and some alternative stuff. And there you go! That was my in-depth review of the NHL 18 closed beta. What did you think about the beta? Was it good? Bad? Or do you want to see the return of the forehand-backhand cheese goal? I know I do. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.